Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Salatu wal Salaam ala Sayyidina al-Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Dear brothers and sisters, I hope you've enjoyed the recording so far. Today I'm going to be giving you a NutriBite around cooking oil. Now, this is a hotly disputed area. Everybody's got their favourite oil, and the food isn't quite the same without it. So without further ado, let me share some information with you. So the cooking oil conundrum. There's a lot of confusion around what constitutes a healthy fat, and a lot of this is driven by cultural values and media. And again, the big problem we have is to do with the excess of fats. Traditionally, if we look at Ayurvedic remedies, they often suggest the use of things like ghee. When women have given birth, we give them ghee. But in the Western world, things like ghee have been bad-mouthed for a long time because of the complex relationship between saturated fats and possible heart disease, which I will address very briefly a bit further on. So what I'm going to suggest is that in your healthy fats, now this doesn't mean that you eat these in an unlimited fashion, but it means that where you need to use a fat, you would choose one of these fats according to the purpose. So we have grass-fed butter, so usually what we'd call an organic butter, because this is high in omega-3, which is an anti-inflammatory substance, or butter ghee. And ghee is an amazing, butter ghee is an amazing food because it contains something called butyrate. Now, butyrate is something, is a little chemical, what we call a short chain fatty acid, which supports the gut bacteria. It's often found in probiotic fiber. So when we break down plant food, we produce something called butyrate. Butyrate is highly anti-inflammatory. It supports brain health. It supports the gut bacteria and therefore immunity and digestion. And it's the only kind of energy that the colonocytes, the cells in the large bowel, can process. Usually the body has to manufacture butyrate, but in butter ghee, which is a clarified butter, you get rid of all the things like casein and other sort of milk proteins that may be causing an allergic reaction for some people. So those are all removed. However, you're left with this butyrate, which can be highly beneficial. The next thing is avocado oil. Now, avocado is high in vitamin E, but also heart-healthy oils, particularly antioxidant oils. It's got a good smoke point, which makes it a really good oil in terms of cooking. We've got coconut oil. Now, coconut oil has been controversial for some time. However, increasingly diets such as the paleo rely heavily on coconut. The reason being that it has, again, short-chain fatty acids, and medium-chain fatty acids, and it also has natural sort of antimicrobial, so anti-infection type properties. It's also a very stable oil. The downside is that if you don't like the smell of coconut, that can affect your food. We've then got olive oil, which we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions olives in the Quran, and he mentions the oil of the olive in the Quran as having exclusive properties, having a special green colour and a glow. And we know from the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ used to make use of olive oil, not only just, nutritionally, but also topically. And then we have nut butters, and I would say most nut butters are healthy, but often if they're combined with palm fat, that can make them unhealthy, even if the palm fat is sustainable. And typically that applies a lot to peanut butter. So I would stay clear of peanut butter in large quantities because it can be pro-inflammatory, not just because of the palm oil, but because peanuts can be. But all other nut butters are really good for you. So what should you avoid? You should avoid anything that's not naturally an oil, so something like sunflower oil, corn oil, soy oil, safflower oil, and rapeseed oil. The other things to steer clear of are margarine, vegetable ghee, and vegetable oil. Now, this might sound like slightly strange advice, but the thing is that the margarine industry relies on something that's not naturally margarine. It requires complex processing of oils and fats to generate a solid, and this involves a process called hydrogenation, which leads to toxic fats in the body. The same thing applies to vegetable ghee. Vegetable oil and seed oils have a number of problems associated with them. Things like rapeseed oil can be genetically modified, so in the GM category, but they can also be very heavily laden with things like pesticides, which enter our food chain. They can also be quite high in something called omega-6. Now, we've talked earlier about omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory, and ideally the body needs a right proportion of omega-3, omega-6 and omega-9. Now, the problem with a lot of seed oils is that they are quite heavy in omega-6, and this disproportionate amount of omega-6 can be quite damaging for the body. It can increase inflammation and carry the same sort of heart unhealthy risks that we've talked about before. So in 1973, Ramsden et al. Did a study of over 9,000 patients who were given corn oil or maize oil, or I don't know if any of you remember mazola from when we were growing up. I mean, it was the most popular cooking oil in almost every Asian household. Well, they found that 41% of people having corn oil, as opposed to people that were not having corn oil, so they were having other oils, including animal fats, there was almost double the rate of heart attacks in these patients. Okay, so I'm going to talk about frying. Now, we're not big fans of frying, but as I said before in the nutrition talk, you can shallow fry, and certainly if you're going to be cutting back the carbohydrates, a short amount of frying will be fine. It's deep frying and excessive frying which can be quite toxic because of the additional, it's not just the oil, but the additional reactions that take place within the food and the temperature at which it's cooked. So oils with the best smoke points include butter, ghee, coconut oil and avocado oil. These oils are relatively stable. So if you need to lightly fry something like fry an egg, you would use one of these to be able to fry. And of these, I would say the avocado oil is the most taste neutral, has no smell, and you can cook a very nice fried egg. What about cooking? So conventional cooking. So if you're cooking things like curries and regular cooking, you can use any of those high smoke point oils, but you can also use refined olive oil. So olive oil is not as stable as the other oils, and certainly you wouldn't want to use virgin olive oil because that is highly unstable. But processed oil can be used for curries and regular cooking. There have been some studies to show that coconut oil is a good choice for rice. One is that when you cook the rice, you don't actually taste or smell the coconut because you're only using a moderate quantity. But also, what they found is that if you cook the rice with some coconut oil, let it cool down, then the cold rice or the reheated rice actually changes its composition so that it increases the resistant starch. What that means is that your body cannot break that down into sugar. And so that, it's actually very good because it reduces the amount of carbohydrates, the amount of starch, and the calorie content of the rice. So if you're somebody who does like rice and you're thinking after the previous talk, oh my gosh, how am I going to live without rice? Well, as I said, you can reduce the quantity and then perhaps try cooking it with coconut oil instead. What about salads and dressings? So this is a great place to have raw and organic and cold pressed oils. So my two favorites are extra virgin olive oil, which has it's really antioxidants, full of vitamins, and it's very heart healthy. And avocado oil for similar reasons. Obviously, the olive oil has quite a unique taste. The avocado oil you're less likely to taste. So with this, I hope that's been a whistle-stop tour through how to choose the right oil for your cooking, whether you're making a dressing, whether you're frying or cooking a regular meal, inshallah. And I really wish this was more interactive so I could see pictures and, get suggestions of how you're going to make these differences. But inshallah, it's, there's still plenty of time to make the change. And I should see you soon with the next NutriBite. Saania Bhatti.